The soft hum of the city through my Philadelphia apartment window was usually a comforting lullaby, a quiet counterpoint to the rush of life at 35. But lately, it just underscored a deep, aching emptiness. 35. That age used to feel so far away, a distant marker of adulthood, but here I was, feeling the clock tick louder than ever. I'd spent my 20s and early 30s building a successful career, moving from one challenging project to the next, often moving on from relationships just as quickly. My friends called me a commitment phobe, and maybe they were right. I'd always had one foot out the door, ready to run the moment things got tough or felt too confining. But something had shifted. I was tired of the chase, tired of the fleeting connections. My heart yearned for stability, for a person to build a life with, to share quiet evenings and loud laughter, to simply be with. I wanted a family, a true anchor in the stormy seas of life. I was ready to make a profound personal change, to dig in my heels and truly commit, to face challenges head-on instead of retreating into my comfortable shell. Then I met Sarah. She had a laugh that could fill a room and a smile that promised warmth. And she had two boys, 4-year-old Leo and 6-year-old Noah, bright-eyed and full of boundless energy. I fell for them instantly, for their innocence, for their need for a stable presence. Sarah told me about their rough go, moving between family members, never having a place to truly call their own. My heart broke for them. I wasn't doing it for pride or to be some kind of hero. I just wanted to give them something they'd never had: a stable home, a complete family, love. I felt an immediate, fierce protectiveness towards them. They became my family, almost overnight. So, after a few months of intense dating, when I saw a chance to provide that stability, I took it. I asked Sarah and her boys to move in with me. My spacious apartment, which once felt too big for just one person, suddenly felt just right, brimming with the potential for life and laughter. Our life together started like a dream. Mornings filled with the chaotic joy of getting two young boys ready for school, evenings with story time and tickle fights. I threw myself into it, embracing every aspect of domestic life, from school projects to playdates. I truly believed I had found my person, my family, my purpose. But the cracks in the foundation began to show barely 3 months into our committed relationship. I remember it vividly. I was idly scrolling through Sarah's phone one evening, looking for a photo she'd mentioned, when I stumbled upon her Snapchat. My breath caught in my throat. There were dozens of conversations, flirty messages, and suggestive photos, exchanges with what looked like 10 or more different men. My stomach dropped. It felt like a punch to the gut. Here I was, fully committed, trying to rewrite my own history of running, and she was doing this. The betrayal was a bitter taste in my mouth. I confronted her, my voice trembling with a mix of hurt and disbelief. She cried, she apologized profusely, she swore it meant nothing, that she was just entertaining them, that it was a silly mistake from her past she hadn't quite shaken. "Please, Evelyn," she pleaded, her eyes wide and tearful, "I promise you it's over. I'll build your trust back. We have something special." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. For the boys, for the family we were building, I pushed down the gnawing doubt and gave her another chance. I asked for reassurance, for proof, for her to truly dedicate herself to us. She promised, and I, against my better judgment, chose to trust again. A few months later, another incident. A suspicious text message, a late night out, a vague excuse. We talked again. More tears, more promises, more vows to change. My friends, who had been so supportive of my new journey, started to hint, ever so gently, that maybe this wasn't what I deserved. "You're a good person, Ev," my best friend Maria said, her gaze sympathetic. "You deserve someone who sees that." I brushed it off. "It's fixable," I insisted. "We're working through it." I convinced myself and tried to convince them that this was just a bump in the road, that all relationships had their challenges, and that I, of all people, needed to stick it out. This was my commitment, my personal growth. I wouldn't run, then Sarah's drinking started to get out of hand. It began subtly, a glass of wine turning into a bottle, then two. It wasn't just on weekends anymore, it was every night. Her mood would swing wildly. One moment she was loving and attentive, the next she was distant, irritable, or passed out on the couch. Our conversations became arguments, fueled by her slurred words and my growing frustration. The boys, too, started noticing. They'd ask, "Mommy sleepy?" or look confused when she ignored their calls for attention. I tried to talk to her about it, to explain how much it was hurting us, how much it worried me. She dismissed my concerns, accused me of being controlling, or promised to cut back, only to repeat the pattern the very next night. The disrespect, the repeated betrayals, the escalating drinking, it was a heavy weight pressing down on my spirit. Why was I still here? Why was I putting myself through this? My resolve to not run was being tested in ways I never imagined. Adding to the chaos was the looming shadow of the boy's biological father, Mark. Sarah had painted him as a monster, a man with a rap sheet a mile long, freshly released from 3.5 years in prison for multiple driving under the influence charges. She claimed he'd never been involved with the boys, never cared, was a danger to them. Every story she told solidified my belief that he was pure evil. I vowed to her that I would do everything in my power to keep the boys safe from him if he ever pursued custody. I genuinely believed he posed a threat, and my heart ached for the children who had already endured so much. I was ready to fight for them, to protect them. But then, as fate would have it, another one of Sarah's careless mistakes provided a glimpse behind her carefully constructed facade. I found her text thread with Mark. The messages told a different story. He was constantly trying to see his kids, sending loving messages, asking about their well-being. My curiosity piqued. I found his Facebook profile. To my astonishment, it was filled with pictures of him and the boys from different stages of their young lives. Happy, smiling photos. My mind reeled. What Sarah had told me, what I had so readily believed, was a fabrication. A calculated lie. He wasn't the absent, monstrous figure she described. He was imperfect, no doubt, but not the pure villain she'd made him out to be. A seed of doubt about everything Sarah had ever told me began to sprout. Her drinking, meanwhile, continued its destructive path, eroding the last vestiges of our relationship. It felt like watching a slow-motion train wreck. Then came an opportunity, a temporary, high-paying job in Colorado. It was a significant decision, leaving Philadelphia for an extended period, but the money was too good to pass up. It was an investment in our future, in the stability I so desperately wanted for us, for the boys. I told myself it would be worth it, that the distance would make us stronger, give Sarah time to reflect. Oh, how naive I was. I packed my bags, kissed the boys goodbye, and left Sarah with a promise to call every night. I was only away for a few weeks, counting down the days until I could return, until I could be home with my family again. The moment I walked back into my apartment, the air felt different. Something was off. Sarah was overly cheerful, almost defensive. My gut tightened. I pressed her gently at first, then more insistently. She fidgeted, avoided my gaze. Finally, the words tumbled out, a confession that extinguished the last flickering ember of my hope and trust. She had invited her ex-boyfriend, a man she hadn't seen in 3 years, into my home while I was gone. Nothing happened, she insisted, her voice small. I wanted to see if there was still a spark. Still a spark. After everything we had built, everything I had sacrificed, every chance I had given her, she was entertaining the ghost of a past relationship in my own bed. My home, the sanctuary I had created for her and her children, had been defiled. I had never in my entire life felt such profound disrespect, such utter contempt from another human being, let alone from the person who claimed to love me, who claimed I was her everything. It was the final, crushing blow. The rage, the hurt, the betrayal, it all coalesced into a cold, hard resolve. I was done. There was no fixing this. Zero chance. My heart, which had been so open, so willing to give, hardened into an impenetrable shield. My family had been ripped away from me, not by some external force, but by the very person I had given my all to. The breakup was swift, brutal, and without remorse on my part. I had nothing left to give, no more chances to offer. The woman I had loved, the family I had envisioned, shattered into a million pieces. The pain was immense, a sharp, physical ache in my chest. But amidst the wreckage, one constant remained, my love for Leo and Noah. Those boys, innocent victims in their mother's chaotic life, held my whole heart. I would never let anything bad happen to them, not as long as I was alive. Even after the relationship ended, my concern for them deepened. Sarah's drinking, instead of improving, spiraled further out of control. Her behavior became increasingly reckless, marked by bouts of extreme neglect. I heard stories from concerned neighbors, saw glimpses of it myself during the few times I had to exchange belongings with her. Her apartment became a mess, her appearance disheveled. The boys, once bright and engaging, started to seem subdued, even withdrawn. Before all this, I had countless conversations with her about my concerns regarding her parenting, her attentiveness to their needs. My words had fallen on deaf ears then, and now her disregard for their safety and well-being was chilling. How could someone who repeatedly declared her children were her everything, her world, her babies, act with such utter selfishness and disregard? It was infuriating to witness. A new idea began to form in my mind, a bitter fruit born of my pain and anger, but watered by a genuine concern for the boys. It was an act of revenge, yes, but also an act of protection. During this time, I decided to take the opportunity to reach out to Mark, the boys' biological father. The monster Sarah had painted him to be, I wanted to form my own opinion, free from her manipulative narratives. I was cautious at first, approaching him through a mutual acquaintance, then a few carefully worded messages. We met for coffee, then later at a neutral playground where he was playing with the boys during a supervised visit. He wasn't a saint by any means. He had his own issues, his own past, that much was clear. But he was undeniably a father who loved his children. He asked about them constantly, spoke to them with genuine affection, and seemed acutely aware of his past mistakes and determined to be a better man for them. He wasn't the pure evil Sarah had made him out to be. In fact, he seemed far more stable, far more capable of consistent care than Sarah was in her current state. The contrast between them was stark. Sarah, spinning into a vortex of self-destruction and neglect, and Mark, flawed but present, wanting to be a better father. The idea, once a fleeting thought, solidified into a concrete plan. Sarah had disrespected me, betrayed me, and taken away the family I had foolishly loved with every fiber of my being. She had ripped my future away. Now, she was going to feel what I had felt. I would take the most important thing to her, what meant the absolute most to her, away from her. The children. I knew it was drastic, perhaps even controversial, but I truly believed it was the only way to ensure the boys' safety and future. It was revenge, yes, but it was also justice for those innocent lives. The day of the custody hearing arrived, a crisp, cold Philadelphia morning. My stomach churned with a mixture of nerves and grim satisfaction. I dressed carefully, a dark, professional suit that spoke of resolve. Mark was already there, looking nervous but determined. He gave me a grateful nod as I approached. The courtroom was a sterile, unforgiving space, filled with hushed whispers and the rustle of papers. Sarah entered, flanked by her lawyer, her eyes scanning the room. When her gaze landed on me, sitting directly behind Mark, a flicker of shock, then disbelief, and finally dawning horror crossed her face. Her eyes widened, her mouth agape. She knew. She understood the implications of my presence, the silent declaration of war. Her face drained of color. It was a moment of profound, quiet triumph for me, seeing her finally understand the consequences of her actions. The judge, a stern-faced woman with an air of absolute authority, called the case. The hearing proceeded, a tedious back and forth of legal arguments and presented evidence. Mark's lawyer laid out a compelling case, detailing Sarah's recent neglectful behavior, her worsening alcohol problem, her erratic decisions. They presented evidence I had helped gather, dates of neglect, times when the boys were left unsupervised, documented instances of her unreliability. I watched Sarah's face contort with anger and disbelief as her carefully constructed image crumbled. She tried to deny, to deflect, to portray Mark as the villain she always had, but the evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable. My heart ached for the boys, who were represented by a court-appointed advocate. Their voices were heard, their needs prioritized. My initial conversations with Mark, my careful observations of his interactions with the boys, my quiet sharing of information, it all culminated in this moment. The judge's decision was swift and firm. Given the compelling evidence of ongoing neglect and the mother's unstable environment, and recognizing the father's demonstrated efforts to provide a more stable home, primary custody was awarded to Mark. A small gasp escaped Sarah's lips, quickly suppressed by her lawyer. But her eyes, burning with a mixture of fury and despair, locked onto mine. She knew exactly whose hand had guided the blade. She knew I had, with careful deliberation, helped take away the very thing she claimed was her world. I walked out of that courtroom with a strange mix of emotions. There was no triumphant cheer, no outward celebration, just a quiet, deep satisfaction. The boys would be safe. They would have stability. That was paramount, but beneath that relief, there was the bitter taste of successful revenge. Sarah would feel the gut-wrenching pain of losing what she cherished most, just as she had made me feel when she ripped away the family I had so foolishly, so completely, built with her. It didn't erase the hurt, the betrayal, the wasted years, or the profound sadness of what could have been. But it was a form of justice, a rebalancing of the scales. As I watched Mark walk out with his lawyer, a hopeful, albeit tired, smile on his face, I knew I had done the right thing for the boys. and in helping them, I had finally found a twisted kind of peace for myself. The Philadelphia hum no longer sounded empty. It sounded like a new beginning, a testament to resilience, and perhaps a quiet victory.